With our title model completed, we're ready to grab our API key. This key allows us to request and fetch data from the movie database API, after which we'll be able to display the data in our app. A quick word of caution: safeguarding API keys is a broad topic that exceeds the scope of this course. While hard-coding keys directly into your code isn't recommended, we'll take a simpler approach for this practice app by storing them in a JSON file. This method does keep the key out of the source code, but it's not a production level solution. However, it's a good step towards better practices. In addition, it'll also teach us concepts like the singleton design pattern and error handling. The first step is to get our credentials. Open a new Chrome window. Inside the search bar, type the movie database. The first link will do. Click on login. Please create an account if you need to. I already have mine, so I'll just log in. Select user profile, settings, API. This is where your API key will be. If you just made an account, you'll need to generate a key. It's a pretty straightforward process and totally free. Once you have your key, keep it handy. We'll need it here shortly. Navigate back to Xcode. Command N for a new file. Scroll all the way down. Empty. Next. API config.json. Create. Please make sure the file is inside your project directory. This file will hold sensitive information like our API keys and base URLs. In turn, this sensitive information will be out of the app source code. Inside the JSON file, start with an open curly brace and hit enter. This creates an object. Type quotes, TMDB, base URL, quotes, colon, quotes. I'll paste the base URL here. It'll be in the comments. Please copy and paste it as well. Close quotes, comma, enter. Quotes, TMDB, API key, quotes, colon, quotes. Paste your own API key here. As a placeholder, I'll type in your key. Before we move on, please ensure your spelling lines up with mine. Caps as well. Our API config.json file is ready to go. It just contains two strings, the base URL and our API key. Hit Command N. Swift file this time. Next. API config. Create. API config.swift will be used for reading and accessing the contents of the JSON file. This allows us to dynamically load sensitive information, like our API keys, into our app at runtime. Make some space after import foundation, struct, API config, colon, decodable, with braces. We have to include decodable because API config will be created by an external source, our .json file. Let TMDB base URL colon string, enter. Let TMDB API key colon string. These are the variables in our .json file. They have to match exactly. Hit enter a couple times. Type static let shared colon API config equals braces. At the end of the braces, put parentheses. We're using something called a singleton pattern here. This is a design pattern that ensures only one instance of API config is created. We're naming that one instance shared. Singletons are good for centralized resource management and usage. We know our logic goes inside the braces. The parentheses at the end are new. They immediately execute the closure at runtime. In turn, our credentials are available right away. Inside the braces, type guard let URL equals bundle.main.url. Select for resources with extension. In for resources, quotes, API config, tab, quotes, JSON, else, braces, fatal error, API config.json, is missing or invalid. We're trying to find the API config.json file in the apps bundle. If the file isn't found, the else block executes and fatal error will crash the app. This ensures the app can't proceed without the JSON file. Make room after the closing brace. Now that we found our file, we can get the data out of it. Type do with braces. After the closing brace, type catch with braces. The do catch block is used to execute code that might throw an error. This allows us to handle that error gracefully if thrown. Inside the do block, let data equals try data contents of URL, return try json.decode API config.self, comma from data. Inside catch, fatal error, failed to load or decode API config.json \error. The autocomplete was pretty good here. Let's break this code down. Load the contents of the API config.json file from the URL we made above. Try is needed here because data contents of can throw an error. After that, try to decode and return the data as an API config struct. This is done using a JSON decoder. The catch block only runs if an error occurs in the do block. Again, fatal error is used because that app can't run without this information. To finish up, we need to run the app to make sure this works. Navigate to Content View. Double click on the tab view starting brace. Click on the closing brace. Enter. .onAppear with braces. Print API config.shared.tmdb base URL. Below that, print API config.shared.tmdb API key. Go ahead and run this code with Command R. If everything works, you should have the base URL and API key showing in your log. If your app crashed, please double check all the files we created. Misspelling and capitalization are the common mistakes. Right now, the app crashes if there's an issue with the .json file. In the next video, we'll explore a more user-friendly way to handle this error. Thank you for spending time with us today. We truly appreciate your support. Can't wait to see you in the next one.